Welcome to Behind the Law with Justin Clark, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Law. I'm here with attorney Justin Clark, and today we are joined by John LeGros, who's been on both sides of the issue when it comes to foreclosures. During the day today and all week, of course, you can get a hold of the Gregory & Clark Law Firm at 321-282-1055, 321-282-1055, and we welcome back a very special guest, Justin. We've got a good compatriot in here
New
today.
business partner, by the way, too. John LeGros in the house. I'm very happy to have him. You're going to love the show today, Rob. You know, we've been doing this show for years together, right?
Yep.
At least 2 or 3 years, me and you.
It's been a while.
But when have we had a guy on to tell us what really goes on behind the scenes at these banks and these law firms for the banks?
Goodness.
John and I just
And
became
there isn't
partners.
a price on his head?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Well, wait 1 hour from now. But John used to do nothing but represent banks. That's all he did in foreclosure cases. So imagine what we're going to talk about today, Rob. Are you excited? Did that just excite you or no?
Clark Howard's coming into town this week. He should have come early so he'd be here today. He's coming in on Wednesday, by the way, for some live broadcast. But he ought to be here today because if there's anything that he doesn't like,
Big banks.
it's the monster mega bank. He does not like those people at all. So this will be a fun show.
Good to see you 2 days in a row now, Rob.
Good to see you, bud.
How you been? How's the weekend treating
It's
you?
been a great weekend here in Orlando. Always good to be up here. I
Nice.
love this town. It's a great town.
Nice and cold outside today on my way in, I noticed. It's
Did
freezing.
you notice that?
Oh, my God.
Good
I don't know what's
105
going on.
degrees, not too bad.
Yeah, the show's called Behind the Law with Justin Clark, but today's really behind the scenes with foreclosure banks and foreclosure bank attorneys. We're going to find out what really goes on. What really goes on during the process of this foreclosure, the decisions behind the scenes that these banks and the bank attorneys make. How do they get paid? Do they really want to work with you, or do they just really want to foreclose and sell your house? All of these questions are going to be answered in the next hour.
I have one of the questions, and we're going to take your questions, too, at 855-297-9696. I'm sure you've got a bunch of them. 855-297-9696. John LeGros, we often heard over the past 2 or 3 years, we heard about multi-tracking. We heard that you might get somebody in the bank that's working with you. Of course, they lose your file every 2 to 3 weeks, but that's just to be expected. But somebody who's working with you from the monster mega bank, and they're going to modify your loan. And he says something like, okay, I've reviewed this. Go ahead and send me $750 a month for the next 4 months, maybe 5. Tell me, friends at home, if you've already heard this. All right, because if you did, you're probably pulling your hair out. All right. Just pay us that, and we're not going to worry about credit reports. We're not going to worry about anything. And if you make it through this next 3 or 4 month trial period with that, we're going to go ahead and do a modification. Meanwhile, right down the hall, as good as we can surmise from doing this show for so many months now, the foreclosure department didn't look up or didn't have any computer report, or there was no watch list in the men's room or the coffee pot room of, hey, we're trying to work with Jim Smith. We're trying to work with the Carol Mobley family. We're trying to work with these people for modifications. Because the foreclosure guys, it seemed like we're down the hall foreclosing at the same time, not knowing what the other guy was doing. Is that right?
It's very interesting you say that, because the banks and the law firms that they hire very seldom talk to each other. What they do is the bank tells the foreclosure attorney, we're ready to foreclose on this property. Now what happens, the bank really doesn't have any involvement with the attorney anymore. The attorney's focused on, okay, now we need to foreclose on this property. And one of the things that Justin touched on a minute ago is, how do the banks pay their attorneys? Now, the attorneys get paid when certain events happen, so the two rarely talk to each other. That's why when somebody's trying to work something out with the bank, the attorney seldom knows what's going on, simply because they don't talk.
Rob, like I've told you a million times on the show, when I have clients who have been trying to work with the bank for the last year and a half.
Sure.
They come into my office because the bank won't call them back. They can't get a hold of the bank. They're either homicidal or
suicidal.
Because the people dealing with the banks drive them crazy. Let me tell you who else the banks drive crazy. Their own lawyers. Their lawyers can't reach the bank often. So I'll call the law firm for the bank and say, hey, we have a great deal on the table here. Can you take it? They're like, well, we haven't heard back from our client. We've tried to call them 3 times. They won't call us back. It's the same thing. They have the same issues dealing with their client as we do dealing with the bank.
Well, here's one that it also touches home. We've had a lot of phone calls on this program and other programs on this radio station. And this one from Matt sounds like the same sort of call. Matt, what is the problem you're running into out there?
Okay, this mortgage company that I had in California back a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, went under, and HSBC bought out all the mortgages. All right, and somewhere in between, there's no note. I get a summons to appear in court for foreclosure, but they don't have the note.
Yeah, I have a really different impression of this lost note scenario than most people. As much as I hate the banks, I believe that 99% of the time they're going to ultimately be able to come foreclose on you and take your house. If not, it's really unjustly enriching that person. Now, I think that we use this lost note thing against the bank to either do one of two things. Let's get you a loan modification to make your payment more affordable. Let's use it against them to do that and keep you in your house. Or number two, let's use it against them to do a short sale or a deed in lieu or something to get rid of that deficiency judgment so you don't have to worry about them coming after you later. But as far as like getting your house for free, my position always is, and we just won a trial the other day, by the way. We had a foreclosure trial. We won. Judge said, bank, you lose with prejudice. But I still think the bank can reaccelerate that note and sue us again. I'm not a big believer in free houses. I'm not trying to, when people come into my office and they say, Justin, I want to get my house for free, I say, you're at the wrong place. Yeah. That's not what we do. We signed that note. We know what we did. We're obligated to pay that. But let's use their nonsense against them to try to make your life better.
We're going to take another break, but you can get legal advice right now by calling Justin's office at 321-282-1055. Associates are standing by. We'll be right back.
Because my first foreclosure attorney was brought to jail by FDLE, when told me, and he was arrested. And then he continued to represent me.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome to Behind the Law with Justin Clark, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
All right, Gwen, what is your question for our great panel today? We've got Justin Clark of Gregory & Clark. We also have their new associate in the firm, and that's John LeGros. Go ahead.
Nice to talk with you, gentlemen. My name is Gwen Donovan, and I just lost my home, and I'm homeless to a fraudulent foreclosure, which I fought pro se for 2 years because my first foreclosure attorney was brought to jail by FDLE, when told me, and he was arrested. And then he continued to represent me, and I didn't know that he had been jailed for forgery. The second one I hired represented he was going to save my house, and then he sent me into summary judgment without due process after he sent me somebody else's foreclosure papers, and I didn't know when the summary judgment hearing was. He never even told me I had an appeal available, a rehearing available after I lost to the summary judgment. And then he sent me to his bankruptcy attorney friend and said, all your options are bankruptcy. So now I'm in bankruptcy. I just filed for bankruptcy. I've lost everything. And this is my question. As soon as they got off the phone with me with PHH Services, which is formerly Send It Mortgage, they fraudulently took over my home. They said to me they were going to modify my loan. Instead of doing that, they changed the due date on the mortgage, which I had paid in full. And then they sent me into a fraudulent foreclosure. Then they assigned my mortgage from PHH Services to U.S. Bank, trustee for BAFC. They fraudulently assigned it, and there were forgeries and all kinds of predatory loan material contained within my on my appeal process. When I was served my papers, you are not going to believe this, but I have a video of this. There was a militia in camo with guns on my 1 acre when they served me the papers. They took my home.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. We're trying to answer your many questions there.
Wow.
First of all, it makes me nervous when someone tries to do anything pro se. And I think we'll talk about this later, some things that John has seen from representing lenders, how they treat people pro se versus how they treat people who have a lawyer. Let's just get into it right now, John. Let's talk a little bit about how these law firms that represent banks get paid.
Well, I think, first of all, I had the opportunity of meeting David Stern way back in 2008. Happened to be in court. Many people may know the infamous David Stern had the firm down in South Florida.
Lots of trouble.
Lots of trouble. Well, anyway, I met with him, and I was doing work for them back in the day, as a lot of local coverage attorneys were. Yeah. One of the things that he explained to me is the process of how banks get paid and how the lawyers get paid from the foreclosure actions. And he would tell me that after they would do certain events, for example, they would file the lawsuit, serve everyone, then they could get a draw from the bank. So he told me the big thing that they want to do is rush things to happen because that's when he could get paid from the bank. They had to front all the money, and then once they accomplished certain events, they could get paid. So they were rushing things in order to get their fee because they were fronting everything, and if they didn't, they weren't going to get paid. And the banks all grade all of the law firms, too. If certain events don't happen within certain time frames, they get a bad grade. It's graded like you get a grade in school, A, B, C, D, F. You know, on. So the worse grade you get, the less referrals you get from the banks, the less money you're going to make. That goes back to the pro se question. When you're pro se in a lawsuit, the banks still treat that as uncontested. Even though you may file an answer, even though you may file something, the banks treat it as uncontested. And the law firms do too, because they realize that this is not going to be a complicated case. Most of the time when people are representing themselves, they file a pro se answer that just says, hey, I'm trying to work something with the bank. I really want some time to work this out. That's not a sufficient answer. That's not a defense to the foreclosure. So even though you think you're defending this case, the bank and the attorneys are looking at it like, okay, we can get to judgment very quickly because they haven't raised any defenses to this lawsuit. That's what I saw all the time.
Well, what I see the vast majority of people when they come into my office who have been trying to represent themselves, Rob, when you get served with the lawsuit, you have 20 days to file an answer or a motion to dismiss. But these are legal documents. Most of the time people come in and say, oh, I already answered the complaint. And they'll send me a letter that they wrote to the judge saying, dear judge, we've been trying to work with this bank and bank won't call me back. That doesn't exactly work that well. Right. You know, I think for a very small fee, you can hire a very good law firm to help you through this process. And it scares me when John tells me stories about how the law firms for the lenders treat people who send that letter in, who want to represent themselves, who think they know what they're doing because they Google searched how to defend a foreclosure.
Not good.
And now you can see the bank and the law firm laughing behind the scenes saying, woo, and they're only going to make a certain amount of money because they know this is an easy one. You know, but once you get a law firm involved, it changes everything. It changes everything from the bank's perspective and the law firm perspective.
Does Gwen have any recourse in your mind, John? Somebody she alleges they changed the date. She alleges they changed the rules. She alleged she paid everything in full. Does she have any regress on this, or is she stuck?
I mean, I guess the answer is going to depend on what happened with the judgment. Did she get the final judgment? What's going on in the bankruptcy case? If she modified it through the bankruptcy case, I don't think we have enough information to give a definitive answer.
She's going to have to sit down with an attorney with files and letters and copies and sort all this out. She probably had one of the most complicated things we've heard on this show in about two and a half years. We're going to take a break, but here's something to think about. Are you working on a short sale? Whether you're working on a short sale or you're currently in the market for one, the offices of Gregory and Clark can help you. Just give their offices a call right now at 321-282-1055. We'll be right back.
They gave me such a bad time. They told me don't make any more payments. If you do, we're just going to call that a gift, and that's going to be the end of it.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
And let's go to Bob on the line. Bob, how can we help you with your dilemma?
Well, 5 years, it's been 5 years, over 5 years, I haven't made a payment on a house. At the beginning, I tried to get a forbearance. They took it away. They went to foreclosure. Nothing happened. So I filed bankruptcy on the mortgage. I surrendered the mortgage and the house, I guess, in the bankruptcy. I know they still have a lien on that property. I went to do a deed in lieu with them,
Right.
and they were all gung ho. And then I filled these papers out with an attorney on New Year's Eve, and I sent it back to him. And this other attorney said all that was short sale papers. The house has been sitting there. I had squatters in it at the time. I finally got them out with the help of Volusia County Sheriff and stuff. The house has been vandalized several times.
Let me stop you right there, Bob. Do you have any desire to keep this house at all, or no?
Well, I kind of would like to.
Are you renting where you live now? Where do you live
now? No, sir.
I
own my home.
Okay, so you own another home. I don't see any reason why you want to try to keep this house that's so far underwater, because you already did a bankruptcy. So you don't have to worry about the deficiency. And so I think your goal now is like, hey, guys, please come take this house out of my name so I don't have to worry about squatters coming and then suing me because I still own it. Is that sort of your concern?
Well, I put insurance on the house because I let it lapse during the deed in lieu process because I thought it was going to be gone. This house is like a curse. It just doesn't want to go away.
Yeah.
Basically, I love the house, but it's just they gave me such a bad time. They told me don't make any more payments. If you do, we're just going to call that a gift, and that's going to be the end of it, and we're going to foreclose. So I did. I moved out, and this builder sold me a house, and I got a mortgage.
Got it.
Wow.
Well, Bob, a lot of people went through the same situation back 5 years ago. They said, hey, bank, I got in a little bit of trouble. Can you please give me help? And they say, okay, Bob, yeah, we're going to help you. Just stop making payments for the next 3 months, and then call us up, and we'll help you out. And now this 5-year run of things begins because the bank used to always say, stop paying us or we're not talking to you. And it's really changed Bob's life. Now he's had to go out and buy a new house, file bankruptcy, and he's still stuck with this house. My one piece of advice probably would have been, in retrospect, I mean, if they're going to treat you that way, you might as well have stayed there for free the last 5 years. But we didn't do that. So to me, it seems to me the best thing to do is try to get this house out of your name, be done with it. I'm sure it's very far underwater. If you didn't already buy another house, I would say, okay, let's try to figure out how to save this house. We can stop renting and move back in. You already have another house that you like. I'd say get rid of that house, be done with it. It's already in the bankruptcy. But try to do that deed in lieu and get out of your name.
All right, Chuck, let's get you on the air.
Okay. My question is I went through a foreclosure. The bank did everything they wanted to do, and they got the house. But I had a equity loan on the house with another bank. And that loan I didn't pay, and I was wondering, I went through they got a judgment against me, and now I'm paying like $50 a month, and I increased it to $100 on my own, and I'm wondering if they can come after me for any lump sums. I don't have any property or anything else. It's coming back on me in September to see if they want me to adjust the higher payment.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering if I can go back to court on that.
Well, I mean, I don't see any reason you're going to be able to go back to court. They have a judgment against you, and they can try to collect on that judgment any way anyone can collect on a judgment, and that's try to garnish wages or whatever. I'd imagine you're hopefully head of household, so you have some protections that a lot of people won't. You could always file bankruptcy and get rid of that.
We're going to take a short break, but before we go, are you struggling to make your mortgage payments? Refinancing your mortgage is an easy solution that could save your home. And Justin Clark has worked on thousands of such cases. Just give the offices of Gregory and Clark a call right now, 321-282-1055, and a free consultation with Justin will give you your options. We'll be right back.
So it's a catch-22 from you. They say, well, we can't work with you because you're current, but then once you fall behind, we can't take your money. Now you got to fit into one of the guidelines of the programs that's available. And if you don't, too bad, so sad. We can't help you.
Stay tuned. Justin Clark will be right back with more Behind the Law. Welcome back to Behind the Law, the show that takes you behind the law and answers your toughest legal questions.
Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Law with Justin Clark and our special guest, John LeGros. A couple of things we were getting at before the break, and that is that you've got the bank working, you've got the modification people, I guess, in the bank, you have the foreclosure people in the bank, and then they're putting the pressure on the law firm to get things done quickly, and the law firm is trying to get things done quickly because they get paid in draws, right?
That's correct. What they do is they'll look at, as any lawyer would, they look at the easy fruit. What they're going to do is they look at people that filed a pro se answer or have no real defenses to the suit, and the firms are going to rush those because they realize they're going to get paid. They're going to get paid once they get a judgment, and they're going to get good grades, which in turn means more referrals from the bank, so they're going to have more files to work. So that's like any lawyer would, though. They're going to look at the easy cases and rush those. That's with the advent of this new foreclosure bill that's going to speed things up. That's, in reality, why you really need a good lawyer to help you in this, because we're going to be able to slow the process down to get whatever you want to do with the property, whether it's a loan modification or to short sell it or to do whatever your big picture is for the property. That's why you need an attorney, and that's why it's important to give us a shout right away.
I have a question that has been burning the mind of Justin and I know the audience for years, and that is, if everything was equal and it was an equal playing field and we were back to the days of the Ingalls or whatever, it seems like you could go across the street and say to the banker, "Hey, bud, I'm having a hard time. The crops didn't come in this year, or my kid needed a heart operation," or whatever it was. And instead of paying you $1,500 a month, can I pay you $1,200? Isn't a bird in the hand worth two in the bush? But no, the banks, no, don't give us anything. Why?
The problem the banks face is when you stop paying, they accelerate the mortgage and the note. So that means they can't take any more payments from you. So it's a catch-22 from you. They say, well, we can't work with you because you're current, but then once you fall behind, we can't take your money. Now you got to fit into one of the guidelines of the programs that's available. And if you don't, too bad, so sad, we can't help you.
Wow.
So it's one of these situations you just fall into an abyss of sorts and can't get out of it.
Yeah. Oftentimes when clients come in my office, they say the same thing. They say, Justin, I know I lost my job, but my wife is still working, so we have half the income. I called the bank and I said, "Hey, bank, can't you just lower my payment to $900 a month instead of $1,200 a month, and I'll keep paying you?" And I say, "Sir, that you're having a rational thought there. Please stop." There are no rational thoughts in dealing with banks and modifications and foreclosure.
Couldn't they tack it on the end?
You would think so, right? And I mean, that would be called a forbearance. That's another program. You got to go through the whole process. There's no just calling up a local bank and saying, "Hey, can you help me?"
Thank you for watching Behind the Law with Justin Clark. Be sure to join us again next week as Justin takes you behind the law and answers your legal questions.